Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. Everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous. From presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I'm proud to introduce you to Melanie Freese, an associate professor of library services whose work ethic and commitment to education has inspired countless students over the years. Melanie, it's such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to you too, Star.
So, why don't we start out with what led you to choose library services as a career path?
Well, actually, I didn't choose it. It chose me.
Okay.
My first career was in elementary ed. So I went to college to become an elementary education teacher. And at the time I got my bachelor's and my master's degree, there was a glut of teachers on the market. So there were very few jobs that led to a tenured position. So in as much as I needed to eat to pay rent, I had to find a job. And I actually found a job working at Adelphi University, and they sent me to the library. And during my undergraduate and graduate degrees, I lived in the library. Because in those days, you had no photocopy machines. You actually had to sit down and take notes.
Oh my goodness.
This
You
was
actually had to learn.
you actually had to learn by taking notes. So I found myself working in a library. I loved it. And so it found me, and I rediscovered my love of libraries at that moment. So I decided to go and get my master's degree in library science.
I actually think that's one of the things that actually taught me how to be a better researcher is the actual physical task of finding knowledge. And that
Yes.
the library is the perfect place to do it. So that brings me to what are some of the behind the scene tasks that a librarian does, which the
Well, actually, I am a behind the scenes worker because I work in the catalog department, which is the basis of the collection. So in other words, the materials that are the resources for the library have to be purchased, and then they're added to the collection. I, as a cataloger, have to make these resources accessible. So I have to figure out where they would go on the shelves. So that's the classification system. In most universities, we use the Library of Congress system to locate materials. And then I have to provide access points. So I have to fully describe the resource bibliographically, or the title, any added titles. If it's a collection of essays, it has a contents note. And then I add subjects. So that's basically what a cataloger does. In the old days of a card catalog, you had to be very, I'm going to say you couldn't give too many subject headings. Because you had to type cards and file the cards. So it was, a paucity of information, shall we say. Nowadays, with a digital environment, you can add as many access points as you like, and to help the patron find what they're looking for. So the goals of cataloging have stayed the same, but we have a little more flexibility and leeway to provide better access to our materials.
It's so interesting, Melanie, as you sort of walk us through what we take for granted. What you've described is the digital version of what is called tagging. And so you can attach multiple tags to a particular volume so that it makes it easier for us lay people to know that that volume is relatable to our search material. So I think that's it's interesting that people who have not had a history in library science, they just take it for granted that you can find anything. It's actually become a part of the lexicon. We go, just Google it, when libraries were the original Google.
Well, as you brought up Googling, Googling is excellent. However, I find that most people that are using Google use too broad a search strategy.
Mhm.
So they could get a million hits.
Mhm.
So as a library information specialist, I I guide the students and any patrons interested, start with a narrow search.
Mhm.
You can always broaden that search. If you start with a narrow search, you'll get a lot shorter hit list and you're more easily able to navigate. If you get too short a list, you could always broaden your search.
When I first introduced you, I talked a little bit about how your work ethic has really been inspirational for students. Let's talk a little bit about how you stay involved in the community, Melanie.
Okay. Well, I've been very involved in my church. I actually taught my first Sunday school class when I was 14. That's why I always wanted to be a teacher. So I, in fact, did get involved that way. I'm still teaching this day. Um, and I love that. I'm also our church's librarian,
Of course.
which I've been for the past 35 years. That's challenging because I do everything from soup to nuts.
Mhm.
I'm not just cataloging the materials, I'm also purchasing, I'm working and getting them out to the congregation, doing outreach to the congregants, and so on. So that's very challenging.
Mhm.
Um, I am very involved with the Nassau County Library Association. I was at one time chair of institutional services.
Okay.
And as part of my responsibilities as chair, we actually worked with getting materials to the juvenile detention center.
Mm.
It was a challenging task to do that. And I was so touched by children being in lockup facilities
Mhm.
as young as 7, 8 years old, because they were deemed pins, persons in need of supervision,
Yes.
or they had done petty crimes. They were children. They were kept behind bars. And every time I went in there, when I got out, I cried.
Yes.
And I tried to make a difference in getting materials so that they would have something to read and something to do. Later on, the Institutional Services Committee took over setting up a library for the Wayside Homeschool for girls in Valley Stream. It's no longer there. The girls in this case were between the ages of 14 to 18. Once again, this was not a lockup facility, but they were treated, they had basically very few freedoms. They were sent to school, and so I set up a school library for them.
Yes, indeed.
Um, as a result of my library, the girls loved it. They were very bright, and they loved reading. I was very proud to say, in the years that I was there, many girls went on to college, and I was so thrilled that I could be a part of that.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because obviously, in getting ready for our conversation today, I did a little more research and I came upon this quote, and it just really speaks to what you just talked to about. Bad libraries build collections, good libraries build services, but great libraries build communities. And you're talking about building a community of learning. It's absolutely imperative. We've been having discussions around our country, obviously, about what law enforcement looks like and reimagining what law enforcement and criminal justice looks like really means bringing the community and services to individuals who would otherwise just end up in the system.
Yes.
our former First Lady, Laura Bush, was a librarian.
Yes.
And she said that I have found the most valuable thing in my wallet is my library card. So that makes me ask you, what can the average person do to maximize what they get out of the library and all of its useful services?
Okay. First of all, I would say, don't be afraid to ask if you don't know something.
Mm-hmm.
No one is going to look down on you because you don't have knowledge. After all, librarians went to library school and they took 36 credits in how to be an effective librarian. So you're not necessarily born knowing how to use a library to its fullest extent. So you must be willing, I really don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And that's the first step. And librarians will often say, there are no stupid questions. Ask what you don't know. We're here to help and provide that service to you. I would also say, learn how to use the internet effectively. If your college offers a course in how to use the library, many of them do. It's like a 1-credit course taught by a librarian and the professor.
Mm-hmm.
Take that course and learn how to do effective searching, because it's a very important tool, especially as you're going to do research for your papers, research for living.
Yes.
So I think you can't do without a library. To me, yes, the internet is there, but you also need a library and you need librarians to assist you.
Absolutely.
So that would be the message that I would want to get across.
Very much so. So I guess finally, what does the future hold for Melanie? Where are you going next, Melanie?
Well, I'm still working. And I have decided, as long as my brain holds out and my eyesight holds out, that I plan to work. Gone are the days when you had to retire at 65. I'm still viable at my age, which is 75. And that working keeps me young.
Yes.
Young
Indeed.
at heart. Working with kids keeps me young. I'm still teaching Sunday school. One of the most important things is actually the friendships I have made with some of my students.
How wonderful is that? This has been so enlightening for me because I believe that learning something new every day is important. Like you, I want to be working until the box closes. Okay, I want to be working and doing and learning every single day. I've been enjoying doing some research in preparation to interview the researcher. And our conversation has just been so enlightening. As the great philosopher said, everything you need for a better future and success has already been written. And guess what? All you have to do is go to the library. So I am
absolutely
a fan of libraries and librarians, and I thank you so much.
And thank you. It was so nice to talk to you.